It started on a quiet Sunday morning, the kind that feels too peaceful to be real. Claire had just moved into her new neighborhood in Portland a week earlier. The air still smelled of paint and new beginnings. After ending a long, exhausting relationship, she wanted nothing more than calm, a place where no one knew her name or her story. Her street was postcard perfect. Rows of maple trees, trimmed lawns, and tidy mailboxes lined the way. Yet something about the silence still felt foreign, like she was walking through someone else's dream. That morning, when she opened her door to grab the newspaper, she found a small, wrapped box sitting neatly on her porch. A white ribbon, carefully tied. No note, no tag, no delivery label. Claire froze. She hadn't ordered anything. She looked around the yard, half expecting to see a delivery truck or a neighbor waving, but the street was empty except for a lone squirrel darting across the curb. She crouched and picked it up. Inside, cushioned in soft paper, was a small silver keychain shaped like a house. It was simple, delicate, the kind of thing someone might give as a good luck charm. Attached to it was a folded card that read, "Welcome to the neighborhood. You'll love it here." Claire's lips curved. She hadn't received a gift like that in years. It felt oddly personal, almost intimate, though she had no idea who it was from. Maybe it came from the elderly couple across the street, the ones who always sat on their porch swing. Or maybe from the woman with the golden retriever who smiled politely but never stopped to talk. Whoever it was, it felt like a kind gesture in a lonely new place. She stepped outside to glance around. The autumn air carried a light chill, brushing past the trees. Then she noticed someone by the hedges, a man about her age, tall, with tousled brown hair and a calm presence. He waved, a little uncertain but friendly. "Morning?" he said. "Morning," she replied, smiling. "I found this on my porch." "Was it you?" He shook his head. "No, but I wish it was. That's a nice way to welcome someone." He introduced himself as Ethan. He lived 2 houses down, worked from home as an architect, and seemed genuinely kind. They talked about the high quietness of the neighborhood, about the rain that never seemed to stop. There was something about him, steady, gentle, but reserved, like he carried stories he didn't quite share. When he smiled, his eyes softened, and Claire felt an unexpected warmth. After he left, she placed the silver keychain on her kitchen counter. The sunlight caught it, making it sparkle faintly. It looked small and harmless, yet it made the house feel less empty somehow. That evening, as the sky turned a deep orange, she made tea and sat near the window. The neighborhood glowed under the porch lights, quiet and calm. Then, around dusk, she heard a soft sound, something sliding under her front door. Her heart skipped as she went to check. A small envelope lay on the floor. Inside, written in neat handwriting, were the words, "I'm glad you liked the gift." She froze, her pulse quickening. The letter wasn't signed. Claire stepped out onto the porch, scanning the yard, the street, the darkening corners between houses. The wind had picked up, whispering through the leaves. No one was there. For a moment, fear and curiosity fought inside her. She knew it could be something harmless, maybe a shy neighbor, someone older and lonely, just reaching out. Still, it felt strange that they hadn't introduced themselves. That night, she placed the note beside the keychain on her nightstand. Both items glinted softly in the dim light, a quiet mystery she couldn't stop thinking about. Before she went to bed, she found herself wondering about Ethan, his calm voice, his easy smile, the way he seemed genuinely interested in her presence. There was comfort in that thought, but when she checked the porch one last time before turning off the light, her breath caught in her throat. There, sitting under the glow of the porch lamp, was another small box. Same wrapping, same white ribbon. If you're enjoying this story so far, Please like the video and subscribe for more heartfelt tales. Claire stared at the box, her heartbeat echoing in her ears. Part of her wanted to open it right away. Another part told her to wait until morning. Either way, something told her this wasn't just a neighborly welcome anymore. Claire didn't sleep much that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the second box sitting under the porch light. Small, quiet, waiting. The thought of it pulled her out of bed before sunrise. The world outside was still half asleep, blanketed in gray morning mist. She wrapped a sweater around her shoulders, stepped outside, and picked up the box. It was just like the first. White wrapping, silver ribbon. But this time, her hands trembled slightly as she untied it. Inside was a small wooden charm carved into the shape of a heart. Smooth, hand-polished, with the faint smell of cedar. A slip of paper beneath it read, "New beginnings deserve kindness." Her breath caught. It wasn't frightening, not exactly. But it felt strange. Someone out there knew she had just moved in. Someone who wanted her to feel noticed. She checked the street again. No one was around. The only sound was a distant lawn sprinkler starting up. That day, Claire went about her usual unpacking. She hung pictures, organized her books, and tried not to overthink the mysterious gifts. But every time she passed the counter where the keychain and heart charm rested, she couldn't help but glance at them. By late afternoon, she found herself outside again. Across the lawn, Ethan was standing by his truck, loading wood planks. She walked over, hesitating before speaking. "Hey, Ethan," she called softly. "Can I ask you something weird?" He smiled. "Sure, you can ask me weird things." She told him about the second box, about the little gifts, the notes, and the handwriting that looked like someone trying too hard to be neat. He frowned slightly but didn't interrupt. "Sounds like someone's got an eye on you," he said after a moment. "But it doesn't feel threatening, right?" Claire shook her head. "No, it's odd, but gentle. Maybe they're just shy." Ethan nodded. "Maybe. But if you get another one, let me know. I'll help you figure out who it is." His offer warmed her. Maybe it was the first time in months someone cared enough to look out for her. That evening, she baked a batch of blueberry muffins, partly to settle her nerves, partly to thank Ethan for listening. She brought a few over, and they talked for nearly an hour on his porch, sipping tea and sharing pieces of their lives. Ethan had grown up in Oregon, never married, worked long freelance hours designing small homes for clients he never met in person. He liked quiet mornings and coffee that was too strong. Claire told him about her job at the design studio downtown and how moving away had been harder than she'd expected. There was something comforting about their conversation, unforced, honest, real. When she walked home that night, the moonlight stretched long shadows across the sidewalk. She almost forgot about the gifts. Almost. Until she reached her front steps. A folded letter lay there, without a box this time. Her name was written in neat cursive across the front. She opened it carefully. "You seem happy here already. I'm glad. I've watched you settle in, and you remind me of someone I used to know. I'll stop by soon, when the time feels right." Her chest tightened. The tone wasn't cruel, but the words carried an intimacy that shouldn't have been there. Someone was watching closely enough to know how she felt. She stepped back, scanning the shadows, her voice barely a whisper. "Who are you?" The night answered with silence. Inside, she locked the door and stood still for a long time, listening to the hum of the refrigerator and the faint tick of the clock. For the first time, the charm on the counter no longer looked like kindness. It looked like a question she didn't want answered. Still, as she looked through her window, she noticed Ethan's porch light was still on. He was outside, sipping tea, eyes glancing toward her house as if keeping watch. Somehow that small gesture made her feel a little less alone, but when she turned back toward the kitchen, she noticed something new taped to her back door, Another note. She hadn't heard anyone come close enough to leave it. You shouldn't tell anyone about me. Her breath froze. Claire stood frozen by the door, the new note trembling in her hands. The words were short, but they cut through her like ice. You shouldn't tell anyone about me. Her first instinct was fear, sharp and sudden. Then came confusion. Who would say that? Someone trying to scare her, or someone who genuinely believed they were doing something kind. The air outside felt heavier now. The neighborhood that once looked calm and friendly seemed to shift under a thin veil of unease. She locked every door and window, double-checked them, then sat on the couch holding her phone. For a while, she considered calling the police, but something stopped her. There hadn't been a threat, not technically. Just gifts, notes, and words that felt too close, and somehow she didn't want to make it a scene. She didn't want to be the new neighbor who panicked. Still, she didn't sleep much that night. Every creak in the house made her flinch. Around 2 a.m, she peeked through the blinds and thought she saw a faint shadow near her gate. But when she looked again, it was gone. By morning, she felt drained. Coffee barely kept her awake. She decided to step outside anyway, trying to act normal, to show herself she wasn't afraid. Ethan was walking his dog down the sidewalk. He waved the moment he saw her. "Rough night?" he asked gently. She hesitated, then nodded. "Something like that." He studied her expression. "You got another note, didn't you?" Her silence was answer enough. Ethan sighed and glanced down the street. "I'll keep an eye out tonight. People can be strange about new neighbors." His words carried both calm and quiet concern. There was something steady about him that made her feel safe, even when her pulse was still uneven. Later that afternoon, while unpacking boxes in the living room, she found herself watching the window again. The street looked calm. Kids on bikes, someone mowing a lawn, life moving as usual. Maybe she was overthinking. Maybe this was just a harmless neighbor trying to connect in a clumsy way. But by dusk, when she walked out to water her plants, she noticed something strange. The first gift, the little silver keychain, was gone from her counter. She looked around, thinking maybe she'd misplaced it. But it wasn't in her pockets, her drawers, or anywhere nearby. Her heart thudded faster. She hadn't left a window open. She hadn't let anyone in. That night, as the rain began to fall, she sat by the window again. Ethan's light was on across the street. Seeing it gave her a small measure of comfort. Then her phone buzzed. The number was unknown. The message was simple. You didn't need to tell him. But it's okay. I forgive you. Claire's hand shook. She reread the message, her thoughts spiraling. Someone knew she had spoken to Ethan. Someone had been close enough to see. She turned off all the lights and pulled the curtains shut. The darkness felt safer somehow. But even in the silence, her heart wouldn't stop racing. Minutes turned into an hour before she gathered the courage to text Ethan. "Can you check your porch? I think someone's been watching my house." His reply came within a minute. "Stay inside." "I'll look now." She waited, holding her breath. Through the rain-streaked window, she saw him step out, flashlight in hand. He scanned the yards, moving closer to her gate. Then he stopped. "Claire," he called softly, "you need to see this." She opened the door, the night air biting at her skin. Ethan stood by her mailbox, holding another box. Same white wrapping, same silver ribbon. But this time, there was something written directly across the lid in black ink. "Don't let him protect you." Ethan's jaw tightened. "That's not a friendly neighbor," he said quietly. Claire's eyes filled with tears, fear mixing with confusion. "What do they want from me?" Ethan didn't answer right away. He just looked at her, his voice steady but low. "Whatever this is, you're not alone in it." They stood in the rain, the box between them, both realizing something had shifted. This wasn't about kindness anymore. It was about control. Claire shivered, clutching her arms. "What do I do now?" Ethan glanced toward the dark street, the wind tugging at his coat. "We find out who they are," he said. "Together." But as they turned to head back inside, Claire noticed something chilling. The note that had been taped to her back door earlier was gone. Completely gone. Someone had come close again. The next morning, rain clouds lingered over the neighborhood, heavy and low. Claire hadn't slept again. She kept hearing sounds that might have been the wind, or footsteps. Every shadow felt closer, heavier. She met Ethan outside around 8. He looked as tired as she felt. "I didn't see anyone last night," he said quietly. "But whoever's doing this is careful." Claire nodded. "They must live nearby? They know when I'm home." Ethan looked down the street, his expression tightening. "Then we start there." They decided to walk the neighborhood together, pretending it was a casual stroll. Claire tried to act natural, but her pulse quickened each time someone's curtains moved. She smiled politely when neighbors waved, though she couldn't help wondering if one of them was behind those notes. When they reached the house across from hers, an older, ivy-covered place with peeling white trim, Claire noticed something odd. On the porch railing sat a familiar object, her missing silver keychain. She stopped mid-step. "Ethan, that's it." "That's mine." He followed her gaze and frowned. "You sure?" She nodded, heart pounding. "Positive." They approached slowly, glancing toward the front window. The curtains were half drawn. Claire could barely make out a shape inside. Someone sitting near the glass. Before she could knock, the door opened. A woman in her late 50s stepped out, thin and pale, wearing a soft cardigan and a wary smile. "Can I help you?" Claire hesitated. I just noticed that keychain on your porch. It looks like something that was given to me." The woman followed her eyes and nodded. "Oh, that? It was in my mailbox this morning. No note. I thought maybe one of the kids left it there." Ethan studied her face. "You didn't put it there yourself?" She shook her head quickly. "No, I don't even know what it is." Her voice was calm but distant, and something about her tone made Claire uneasy. She thanked the woman and took the keychain, forcing a polite smile. As they turned to leave, the woman called out softly, "You're the new one, aren't you? The one who moved into the old Davis place." "Yes," Claire said carefully. The woman nodded slowly. "Be careful there. People around here notice everything." The words hung in the air like a warning. Later that day, Ethan invited Claire to work from his house, just so she wouldn't be alone. They sat up at his kitchen table, trying to focus on anything else. Every so often, Ethan looked out the window toward her home. "You're staying here tonight," he said finally. "At least until we figure this out." Claire wanted to argue, but she couldn't. The thought of going home alone made her chest tighten. That night, while Ethan dozed off on the couch, she sat by the window watching the rain. The streetlights flickered. Then, through the gray drizzle, she noticed something. A faint glow inside her own house. Her living room light was on. Her breath caught. She was sure she'd turned it off earlier. She grabbed her phone and whispered, "Ethan." He woke instantly, followed her to the window. They both stared at the faint light across the street. Ethan didn't waste time. He grabbed his coat and flashlight. "Stay here. Lock the door. I'll check it out." "No, wait," Claire said, but he was already outside. From the window, she watched him cross the street, his flashlight cutting through the rain. He disappeared around the back of her house. Minutes passed. The light inside flickered off. Then came the sound of footsteps approaching, but from the front porch, not the back. Her phone buzzed in her hand. It was a message from an unknown number. "You shouldn't have brought him into this. He's not who you think he is." Her pulse hammered. She looked up just as someone knocked gently at Ethan's front door. When she opened it, Ethan stood there, drenched, pale, and silent. "There's no one in your house," he said softly. "But someone's been there. Your back door was unlocked and the lights were set on a timer." Claire swallowed hard. "A timer? I never set one." "I know," he said, his jaw tightening. "Someone wanted you to see that light." She sank into the couch, shaking. None of it made sense. The gifts, the notes, the intrusion. But the message she'd just received replayed in her mind. "He's not who you think he is." She looked at Ethan, still standing by the door, rain dripping from his coat. For the first time, a flicker of doubt crossed her mind. Who really was he? The next morning, sunlight broke through the clouds for the first time in days. The rain had finally stopped, but the uneasy feeling inside Claire hadn't faded. She sat at Ethan's table, nursing a cup of coffee she couldn't finish. Every sound outside made her glance toward the window. Birds sang. A mail truck passed. Everything looked normal, yet nothing felt right. Ethan was quiet too. He kept pacing, running a hand through his hair. "I didn't sleep," he admitted. "I kept thinking about that message you got." Claire looked up, searching his face. "Do you really think it's someone trying to mess with me? Or do you think they mean what they said?" He stopped walking. "You think they meant me?" She hesitated. "I don't know. It's just strange how they know so much." Ethan didn't reply right away. His eyes were steady, but his voice dropped low. "You're scared, and that's okay. But I'd never hurt you, Claire. You believe that, right?" She wanted to. She really did. He reached into his pocket and pulled out something that made her freeze. A small folded note. "I found this on my porch this morning," he said. "I didn't want to show you until now." Claire took it, her fingers trembling as she unfolded the paper. The handwriting was the same as before, neat, careful, a little too deliberate. "You shouldn't trust him. He watches you too." Claire's pulse quickened. She looked at Ethan. "Where did this come from?" He shook his head. "I don't know. It was taped to my door." They both fell silent. The air felt heavy, like the space between them had suddenly thickened. Finally, Ethan exhaled. "We need proof. I'll set up cameras tonight, around your house and mine. If this person's been close enough to leave notes, they'll slip again." It was a good plan. Logical. But still, Claire couldn't shake the unease crawling beneath her skin. That evening, Ethan helped her clean up her porch. The two of them worked quietly, side by side, checking locks and resetting lights. By the time the sun dipped below the rooftops, the street was washed in golden light. For a moment, it almost felt peaceful again. They said goodnight, and Ethan headed home. Claire lingered by the window, watching as his porch light came on. She wanted to believe it was over, that whoever had been watching had finally stopped. But then, near 9 o'clock, her phone buzzed again. Another message. "Same unknown number. Check your porch." Her stomach twisted. She turned slowly toward the window. Under the soft glow of the light sat another box. Smaller this time. The ribbon was gone. Claire opened the door, heart pounding. Inside the box was a folded photo, a picture of her and Ethan talking on his porch 2 nights ago. The words written on the back made her knees weaken. "He's not the only one who cares about you." Her breath came short. The photo wasn't taken from the street. It was taken from inside her house, through her front window. She stumbled back, slamming the door shut, locking it twice. Her hands shook as she called Ethan. No answer. She called again. Still nothing. Panic flooded her chest. Then came a knock at the door. Gentle, familiar. "Claire?" "It's me," Ethan's voice said softly. She froze, unable to move. "Ethan, where's your phone?" "Forgot it at home," he said. "I saw your light flicker. Just checking if you're okay." Her mind raced. That couldn't be right. She hadn't turned the light on or off. She stepped back slowly. "Did you just send me a message?" There was a long pause on the other side of the door. "What message?" Her heart thudded painfully. "Step away from the door, Claire." The voice wasn't harsh. It was calm, almost pleading. "You're scaring yourself." Then, from her phone, a new message appeared. "Don't open the door." Her breath hitched. She looked at the door, at the faint shadow beneath it, the outline of someone standing too still. "Claire," Ethan said again, softer now. "Please open up." She didn't move. Her trembling fingers hovered over her phone, ready to call for help, when suddenly she heard footsteps retreating, slow, deliberate. Through the peephole, she saw Ethan walk away into the darkness. His face unreadable, the street fell silent. Moments later, another notification appeared on her phone. This time there was no number, just one final line. "You're safe now." Claire stood in the quiet of her home, the silver keychain resting on the table beside her. It glimmered faintly in the light, a reminder of how one small gift had changed everything. Outside, the wind rustled through the trees, carrying a soft whisper that faded into the night. And for the first time in days, she wasn't sure whether she should feel grateful or afraid.